My name is Damolare Sonoiki, and this is not another industry podcast. It's an excuse for me to talk to the most interesting people in media. So everyone from actors, models, influencers, producers, writers, journalists, everything in between. On this episode, I'm joined by Etienne Maurice. Etienne is an actor, producer, really a jack of all trades. He is a founder of Walkgood LA, which is a Los Angeles-based organization dedicated to bringing people together to fight for racial equity and heal in solidarity to the arts. They do a lot of cool stuff with mental health, yoga, things of that nature. The arts, health, wellness, things of that nature. And so also his mom is Sheryl Lee Ralph, who, the mom from Moesha, the mom in pretty much every black TV or film, her or Jennifer Lewis. And, she's in Abbott Elementary, was in Dreamgirls, really a superstar. And, we talk a lot about that. So here is Etienne. Welcome, Etienne, man. Thank you for joining, man. You're looking very, I feel like I haven't seen you in a while. Your hair is looking good, your skin, your teeth. You look like money. You look like wealth. If you're listening, he looks good.
I receive all of that, bro. Thank you for having me on your podcast. This is dope. I see you got for those of y'all that are listening, y'all don't see this man got his NAACP Image Award in the background.
Well,
it's a not so subtle flex.
No, I don't even know that I deserve it. When they got the email about it this years ago, I thought it was a mistake. Cause I'm not on Blackish anymore, but they're like, oh, it's for the calendar year. So I was like, okay, cool. And I didn't order it. Oh my goodness, I didn't order it. I didn't order it for years. Like, it's on the screen. Because you have to pay for it. I can't remember how much it was, but it was like maybe like $250 or $300 or something.
A lot of people don't realize you got to pay for these awards.
Okay, but the ones that people get, like Anthony and Tracy and those people, like the ones they get on the stage, they don't pay for those, right?
Yeah, they don't pay for those. Yeah, my mom did not pay for her Emmy.
Oh wait, did she get that? Shout out your mom. Did she get that for Abbott?
Yes, for Abbott Elementary.
What was the Emmy? I should know this, but what was the?
Yes, shame on you, Damolare. This is only the number one award that everyone is talking about.
Is it best Was it best actress?
Best supporting actress.
Best supporting actress. Okay, look, I will give myself some grace because I do a lot of prep for these, but I do the most of the prep
because you were interviewing me, you didn't do the prep. I guess.
Yeah, I do the prep. Like if I were interviewing her, I would have done the prep. I'd done all the prep on her. But I feel like you're your own separate person, and I feel like that's one thing over the past few years. Like you really stepped out on your own as your own separate person. I feel like it's. I think like sometimes like child actors and then kids of celebrities sometimes like they not stuck, but like they are seen as that forever, right? Like you're so and so's kid, or you're that person from this Nickelodeon show or this whatever show. And I feel like over the past few years, like you really with Walkgood and like with the things that you've been doing on your own. So that's why I ignored. I didn't shout out your mom though. She's great.
Hey man, I appreciate that, man, and it's dope that you even can acknowledge that from even your vantage point, because I think. A lot of my friends who are sons and daughters of celebrities or icons, they might shun away from, acknowledging that their mom or dad or aunt or uncle is so-and-so. But I take pride in my mother being Sheryl Lee Ralph.
Oh, yeah, she's a legend.
I'm so proud of my mom. And any chance I get, I'm always going to big her up. And then, I think it's because of what I've seen my mom do. It's given me much more power. It's put like the battery in my back to do the best that I can in my field, whether it's through film, whether it's through wellness, whether it's through community building. I've seen that it was possible because I seen my mom do it. I know that it's possible because my mother saw her mother and her father do it, right? And I think legacy is something that really means something to me because it's because of that legacy that I'm here today.
I feel that. That's very strong. I'm going to have to blur out my eyebrows for this thing. Your eyebrows are just completely shitting on mine right now. I don't know. You get those threaded?
I'm getting all these compliments, man. Stop. You're making me blush.
Well, that's my line. I always say that somebody's making me blush because, I'm very dark. But yeah, I mean, in case
I
you don't
forget
know.
how funny you are, bro. You're actually a funny individual.
Well, I appreciate. Yeah, I love. First of all, I also love your voice. I feel like we haven't talked, like spoken. Like, we texted, but I feel like we haven't spoken in a while. So I'm like, yo, this is your
Oh
podcast
man.
voice, like late night R&B. Like, you
Nah,
trying to.
bro, this is me. This is how I speak.
No, I feel you. Well, I wanna talk about. I mean, so it's funny. I feel like this podcast usually. I mean, I say usually, but yeah, I've been recording a lot of episodes, and I think of it as like, okay, certain jobs, right? If I want to become a lawyer, a doctor, engineer, like I kind of know the steps to take. If I want to become a police officer, a firefighter, I know the steps to take. But for jobs in entertainment and even entrepreneurship, there isn't really a handbook. And so
No.
certain people, like, if you know somebody who does something, and I think that's one of the reasons why Hollywood tends to have, I mean, first proximity, but one of the reasons Hollywood tends to have people who come from families of who are in the industry is that if you're outside of these things, it's hard to know like how to even get in them. So
Yeah.
I think that I will usually say like, oh, like tell us how you got to where you are. Also, your case is a little bit unique because you had, no one, I can't tell somebody like, go back and be born Sheryl Lee Ralph's son, but there are things you've obviously done. I mean, I could tell somebody, but it wouldn't work. But there are things that you've obviously done on your own. So like, walk me through your path. Cause I feel like, when we met, you were somebody who, I feel like I keep like LA and East Coast separate, but you were somebody who knew a lot of my East, like people from like Black East Coast people, like Black Ivy sort of East Coast people, and like all the LA people. And I feel like you're so intertwined. Like I had Hugh Augustine on here and he was talking about the parties at your house and like back in the day. And just like, I feel like you're very, LA has this weird, there's like the Black creative scene of like, Odd Future and all that and all of that. And then there's also like the kind of more urban, like gritty, more like YG and Draco, and then also like in between you almost have like Dom Kennedy. But like, I feel like there's this kind of like generation of Black creatives, and I feel like you're kind of at the center of it in a way, right?
Yeah, I mean, well, I think for me, I've always had a different perspective because I grew up with these people, right? My best friend from high school was cousins with Dom Kennedy. I went to, dances and house parties and, was legit friends with Hugh Augustine. Like I went to freaking summer school with Hugh. Raven Simone is pretty much my god sister just because of her relationship through my mom and her supporting my mom and my mom supporting her throughout her career. I think of Tyler the Creator and Odd Future. Like I know them because Taco, also known as Travis, because that's his real name. He's cousins with my best friend from middle school, and we all grew up together. Is basically what I'm saying. We're all from LA.
Right.
And I think people just enjoyed hanging out at my house, and I was always building the community at my house parties when my mom wasn't in town, and everybody
would she be on set like shooting a movie or something?
Yeah, she'd always be out of town doing something, and
your house is like kind of central in LA, so it's like in between everything, sort of.
Yeah. It's literally, it doesn't get more LA than that. It's centrally located. How people say it takes 15 minutes to get anywhere in LA. That is actually the case for me.
I'll say 20 these days, but yeah, 25
yeah,
sometimes.
True.
But I feel you.
But no, man, I think I've even before Walkgood, I was always building my community and making sure that everybody felt safe and had joyful memories whenever they were in my environment or in my presence. And I think that has stuck throughout these last 10, 15 years. Even when I had my Sweet 16, people, it's been 16 years since I've had that Sweet 16, and people still say that's the best party they've ever been to in their lives. I'm like, damn, you ain't never been to any other parties before?
Well,
that was up there.
That's okay. Yeah, tell me, like, what was it like growing up in that? Because I think, I think I always kind of fetishize LA a little bit because, like, I grew up, like, I lived in Nigeria until I was like 6. So, like, America to me was like, it's like the land of milk and honey. It's incredible. But even in then, like, I was really into like Tupac. Like, I was a huge Tupac fan as a little kid. And then even when I first got into basketball, I was a huge Lakers fan. It's like Kobe and Shaq. And so I always like, even Baldwin Hills, like I watched Baldwin Hills being like, yo, like this is, that's why I feel like when I met you, it was like, yo, this is it's almost like a full circle moment,
It's funny that you even bring that up though, because I was literally just living my life. And I think people really just connect to even my relationship with my mom. It's not what you would think a Hollywood family is. Like take out Hollywood. Like, we're literally just a family.
Right.
We love each other. We have Thanksgiving. We have Christmas dinner. You know, my mom will still punish me. You know, I have a sister who I love dearly, and we will get into arguments. And I think people who know us in the city know us as being, you know, the typical family. But, you know, earlier you talked about my journey, and really, I think my journey started in entertainment specifically, you know, going to set with my mom on the set of Moesha and really being inspired and seeing all the cameras and seeing, you know, Ralph Farquhar, who was a showrunner, you know, do his thing, and you know, seeing Mara Brock-Akil when she was, you know, Ralph Farquhar's assistant, and, you know, and people who I literally consider family, you know, creating a life for themselves in entertainment. And I always was inspired by that. But at first I was really inspired by being in front of the camera. Didn't realize that I was going to really make a life for myself as a creator, as a producer, as a writer. And I remember being young and, you know, I wanted to, you know, fake sick just to just be on set.
Well, first of all, it's crazy. I didn't know that that Ralph Farquhar. I mean, I feel like I know all the kind of more recent Black creators, but yeah. So he co-created South Central on Fox, Moesha, and The Parkers.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that's amazing. So I think it's incredible that like I mean, what is it like with that being like, I think that like Houston, for example, like the biggest deal that might happen in Houston is like, it's like, oh, I saw Slim Thug at the Galleria. That's like yo, like, and no offense to Slim Thug.
That's funny. And then for me, how I would contrast that is I would see Brandy at the Beverly Center like every weekend.
Yeah, but I feel like that's the funny thing about LA. Like I remember like my first, you know, I look back on it very cringe. Like my first couple years in LA, I was running around like, because I was just never, I felt like I had to take a picture every time I met somebody who I was a fan of, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, wait, I'm going to see these people all the time, right? I mean, and obviously not like, when I was on set at Black, because that's different. I'm not going like, you know, Anthony and Tracy, that's like, you see them every single day, so it loses the novelty. And also, they're just, you know, they're your coworkers. But I feel like it took me so long to get used to being in the industry, working in the industry, and also just living in LA, because like you literally might, like, because I mean Houston's dope, but like it's like, oh, I saw, like, you might see Steve Francis at the mall, like the one kind of big mall, and that's like a huge deal.
Wait, hold on, can we talk about Steve Francis real quick? All right, so I just have a Steve Francis story. You know, Steve Francis was like, I was such a big fan of Steve Francis, and then I went to college.
Me too.
And I went to college. I was, you know, being the young creative, you know, at South by, and I was working for this booking agency that booked all the hip hop shows, and they had a house in Austin. And I look over and I see Steve Francis, and he just looked so unrecognizable, and it made me so sad.
Okay,
yo.
The same thing happened to me, especially like in 20, I want to say 15. Like he was like at the Sauce Twins concert. So Sancho Saucy and Sauce Walker, they had a concert at this place called Warehouse Live in Houston. Like he was on stage. And he got
Warehouse
snatched.
Live. I know exactly.
Oh yeah, I forget. You've been everywhere. Yeah, so he got his chain snatched. And but luckily, like Jay Prince was like, and it was like camera, but Jay Prince like, yo, Steve Francis is a friend of mine. You know, when Jay Prince said something, that chain was in Jay Prince's hands by the next business day. You know, but yeah, no, I've seen him look rough just in pictures. I feel like more recently he's been looking better. And I remember he was like, you know, he had those pictures with, I think he was on that cover actually with Destiny's Child on like one of those magazines. Yeah. But yeah, he was a legend back then. But yeah, I think that like LA, I feel like you guys are so desensitized to it because you guys grow up in it, especially for you because you know who your mother is. But like, and I feel like that's one of the reasons y'all kind of don't like transplants, because like we're just so like we're not used to
y'all just so in awe of everything.
Oh and, yeah,
like, you know, it's regular to us.
Yeah, especially like the black, because I feel like the black, you know, scene too, right? Like just like also I have another question. Do your mom and Jennifer Lewis have any beef? Because I feel like they're like the two black moms, right? Like everyone's like, it's
bro. I literally call her Auntie Jennifer. And that's the thing. Even in Black Hollywood, I don't see the beef, right? Because I literally look at these people like family. How people look at them like they raised them on TV. Like these women literally raised me in real life. So,
Yeah,
and
real.
think about it. My mother's known Jennifer Lewis, back during Dreamgirls days when my mom was in the original company of
Yeah.
Dreamgirls. And so, Jennifer Lewis was Jennifer Holliday's understudy. And so my mom has known her since way back when. My mom has known Felicia Rashad even way back when, because Felicia Rashad was my mother's understudy in Dreamgirls as Dina Jones.
Well, it's so crazy how small the work. So I was talking to Patrick Cage and also Chris Meyer, Wolf Meyer, and they were talking about as actors coming up in LA. There was always a sense of like, yo, if I don't get it, I hope you do. Because they would see all the Kofi and all the black actors would be auditioning for the same things. And he said the same thing. Like, it wasn't really competition, it wasn't beef. It was like, yo, like, hey, if I don't get it, I hope you do. Which is a very, I think that's probably one of the reasons everyone's kind of been able to come up, because there hasn't been sharp elbows.
Again, the only way that we're gonna thrive as a community is if we continue to uplift each other as a community, because we're gonna continue to see each other, and there's gonna be times. I mean, we're at that age now where the same people that we saw yesterday, they're not gonna be here tomorrow. I mean, look, we just lost Twitch this morning, and I think we just have to really, really remember we have to be kind to one another as much as we can. And we got to show love as much as we can. And we got to show support as much as we can, because we don't know how long we're going to be on this earth. We don't know how long we're going to be with each other and amongst each other. And I think when we talk about, opportunities we're going to get or we might not get, you never know when you're going to need that person later down the line. So why not give love and show support and be like, yo, man, if it's not me, I hope it's you. It's too much energy to hold on to that ego, and to hold on to that pain and frustration and that anxiety. It's not worth it, So why not be like, oh, this is for you.
Yeah, that's true. I feel like you've always been very sort of copacetic, like not like I feel like I've never seen you raise your voice. You know what I mean? Like, you're always very sort of.
I'll raise my voice, but only if I'm being disrespected.
I feel you. I mean,
I'll even mention this. Like, I was watching this podcast. I was reading this not reading this podcast. I was watching this podcast with Nipsey Hussle, and he was talking about how, like, a lot of times we as human beings, we forget just the simple thing of just doing what is right to other people, like, and just treating other people just as a decent human being based off of our own egos and our own misconceptions of people. It's just like the human value of treating somebody with kindness. Like, there's nothing wrong with just being kind to someone and just looking out for someone when you can. And just being honest and being forthright. In Los Angeles, it's so easy just to lose sight of that, because I say this: LA is a sunny place with shady people, but it's only shady if you're looking for the shade. But why don't you look at it from a different perspective? Look for the sun. Look for your community of people that breathe life into you. And so, when you see me and you see my joyous, happy self, and when I try and give love, it's only because I know what it's like to have almost lost my life 2 times. I know what it's like.
That's incredible. Yeah.
When I think about, surviving all the trauma that I've been through, it's too much to hold all of that trauma and all that frustration in. I gotta live my life out fullest and the best I can.
Well, it does. I mean, it makes sense why your company is called Walkgood, because it has. I feel like that is your ethos. That does capture your spirit. I mean, talk about that a little bit. I mean, so I know you went to because you went to school on the East Coast, right? And then you also spent some I guess walk us through how growing up. So you grew up in LA, you grew up around all this stuff. And by the way, I do want to say I can imagine you being on set. I think that one thing that blew my mind on Blackish is that set is like a small village, right? Like there, you have so many. You have craft services, right? So you have those people who cater the food and stuff. You have grips and electricians, people who move stuff around and lighting, and you have costume and hair. It's like a little town. And so I can imagine, just like I can imagine growing up in that, because that's, you have the teachers who teach the child actors, and you just have so many people. Like it's a big operation, and so it can be like a small family.
No, without a
But
doubt.
yeah, so I guess like walk us through. So like, would you like, I guess middle school, high school, like and because I feel like most people in LA kind of stay. I mean, people do go to different schools, I guess, to some
Yeah.
extent, but I feel like most people do kind of stay in California at least.
So my high school experience, I hated it. I went to this school called Pilgrim School. I'm sorry, but it was probably one of the most frustrating experiences of my life. I went to a school where I didn't feel supported.
Was it the
And
demographics? Like what
yeah,
about it?
it was me and my best friend Homer and Dustin and Kari, and we were like, Dustin, he was the Filipino at the group, and Homer, he was Filipino and black, and Kari, he was black. And I just felt like I was just always living on my own island. And I always felt like there was just jealousy from all different points, from the teachers, the people I went to school with. But I always just I showed love as much as
Well,
possible.
what do you think? I mean,
But it got,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
but I said it got to a point where once I got to my senior year of high school, my mom was like, "You're not gonna be here anymore. I'm taking you out." And I did a bridge program in Austin, Texas, at this school called Houston Tillerson University. It's an HBCU in Austin. A lot of people don't know an HBCU is even in Austin, but it's
Yeah,
the
Austin's
first.
not very B.
I know. It's the first institute of higher learning in Texas, and it's at HBCU. And so I went there, and I spent my senior year at Houston Tillerson University. I was there for 2 years, and that was where I really learned how to be an entrepreneurial artist. That was the first time I was, working for my creative endeavors. And and this is during the time when YouTube and vlogging was just becoming a thing. And I was documenting Mac Miller and Kendrick Lamar and J. Cole and Wale and all of their first tours in Texas. So they would stop in Houston, Dallas,
like
San Antonio,
right? Like that was like the
Scoremore,
Scoremore era.
yeah.
Like,
yeah, and I was the first
Scoremore
person
tickets.
to
Like it was like a
document.
company. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was the first person to document all these tours, and this really was helping me start to find my voice. I would shoot and edit, and I would literally just follow these artists around, and their 3-stop tour in Texas, because Texas is such a big state. So then I transferred. I left Texas, and I transferred to Drexel University, and then that's where I studied film. And that was the first time where I was in a community of filmmakers who loved film and were passionate about film just as much as I was. And
Do they know who your mom was? I guess you probably.
Yeah. I mean, well, my stepfather, he's a state senator in Pennsylvania, so a lot of people knew who my family was, and I think, but it was dope just to be so far from LA and just hone in on my creative path and just create projects and create films. And it was like 1 or 2 black people in my class. Definitely felt like the outsider, but I remember when I was in college, Blackish, the pilot trailer had just come out, and I remember seeing the trailer and was like, oh wow, finally this is a show that represents the actual, like, my experience as a black man in America. And this was at a time when there were no sitcoms being made of about black shit. There weren't any black shows at that point that really articulated the black experience at that time. This is what, like 2000, 2011, 2012. And I remember just wanting to tell that story of what happened to the black sitcoms. And that's when I started to develop, and I shot my senior thesis, The Last Laugh. And that kind of just took you through the decades of the black sitcoms and how the black sitcom came about.
Right. And also, I guess Blackish, the pilot came out September 2014. But I mean, well, the series, but I'm sure, like, obviously you probably saw the pilot before, you know, when it was just a pilot. Yeah, that's now that I think about it. Yeah, there really was kind of a dark. I mean, that's a whole other conversation, right? Like how UPN, like we went from the UPN days of like just wall to wall programming of black, black families and black, friend groups. And you think about Smart Guy, you think about Moesha, you think about all these things, the Parkers, Martin, and then suddenly there isn't that at all. And even the era of, I mean, the black film one is a little bit more explainable because the entire film industry kind of created, but you had that era of like Love Jones and there's all these black. I mean, Jason's Lyric, and I mean, Set It Off, and I mean, every movie Tupac was ever in, right? But yeah, I mean that's it is like it is true.
Not every movie Tupac was ever in.
I mean, basically, except for maybe Gridlock. I guess Gridlock wasn't really. I'm a big Tupac fan.
You're a big Tupac fan and you're a big Drake fan. That's the two things I know.
That's true. I feel like I once dated a girl just because she had a picture with Tupac. I never found the picture. I was like, it was like I really liked her a lot. It wasn't, obviously that was the only reason, but, she had this picture with Tupac with her and her mom. I guess they ran into each other at like Fox Hills or something. One of those malls.
I love how you have all these little stories.
Yeah. But I never found the picture. I think they had moved and like the picture was somewhere in there, it's out there somewhere. I'm like, yo, you have an unseen picture of Tupac. Like, how do you not scour your place to find it? But yeah, I mean, you talk about jealousy in, I guess, at Pilgrim. Did you ever feel like resentment and jealousy over who your mom was? I think that like in Hollywood, a lot of times, like one of my first guests, I think probably the first person I recorded with was Mara, right? And we talked about how like getting into the entertainment industry when you're not from LA and you don't have any ties to it. And I think that like my path was unique because I went to Harvard, so I got into through the Harvard Lampoon. That's a big network. But like I think that, I mean, just being in LA sometimes, like you'll be at somebody's house and you're like, wait, why are all these pictures of Eddie Murphy up? And I say, oh wait, your dad is Eddie Murphy, right? Or like, why are all these pictures of LL Cool J around? Oh wait, that's like your dad. But I do think like a lot of times you'll meet people and like they'll have some sort of, their parents were this or that. Not even in your case where it's like their mom was like Sheryl Lee Ralph, like an icon, but where their parents might have been models or just even character actors, even commercial actors, right? And it's like, oh, they have a kind of a foothold. And so I think it is like someone as an outsider, there's like feel like a little bit of resentment where it's like, man, like, cause if I like, I don't have, like, if I lose this certain opportunities, then like I have to go back home basically, right? Or I have to somehow figure out. Whereas like if somebody else loses it, it's like, all right, well, I'm still good.
I don't think I ever had any resentment. The only resentment I had as a child was my mom not coming to some of my basketball games or coming to, a recital.
You were a hooper.
Because, yeah, man. And so it's those moments that, I look back and I think, well, dang, I wish my mom was there. But she was working. She was really, fighting tooth and nail just to make sure that, we had a comfortable life. And
a place to throw those parties. A place to throw those parties.
Exactly. And so I think a lot about, the sacrifice that my mom had to make just to make sure that, I became a successful young man. But growing up, I've now been able to reflect a lot more on that and know that my mom did everything that she did out of love, and she did the best she could just to be there for me.
Right. I mean, I guess I guess what I meant more so too is like, did you feel like any outsiders that like someone like, man, he's like basically he don't have to do nothing because his mom is who she is?
Oh,
or like,
yeah, of course. I always felt that. My bad. I'm misunderstood that question.
It's all good.
No, I definitely felt that a lot. But I knew early on that I can't help who my mom is and what my mom has done. And I always tell people, let my mom's story be an inspiration for you, that you too can be able to make it in this industry and make an impact on someone's life and be an inspiration to someone else. I think a lot about what my mom had to go through just to get to where she's at in her life. And I always tell somebody, I would tell somebody else, like, you should pray for the opportunity to be able to build a career like my mom and to be able to offer an opportunity to your kids one day like the opportunities that my mom has offered to me. Now, mind you, my mom can only introduce me to the door. She could just show me to the door. I got to be the one to step through that door. And I think throughout my lifetime, I've done an exceptional job of being able to grab that door and kick that motherfucker down and make sure that people know who the fuck I am.
Yeah, and I feel like that's what I was saying earlier. I feel like you have like kind of built up your own separate identity, your own separate brand, and with Walkgood especially, and like the yoga and just the lifestyle and all that stuff.
And the dope part about it is when people find out who my mom is, it's just like the cherry on top. They're like, wow, that's so dope that you have built your own community and you didn't even do it off the back of your mom, like you did it on your own. I did it with the support of my mom, the love and the care of my mom and my dad, and really my whole family. But
your sister.
Again, I couldn't have done it on my own.
Yeah, I mean, how did you deal with that kind of resentment, right? Because you're right, like you can't help who, like, because I do think there's, in the industry, especially like people, there's just jealousy sometimes where it's like, man, this person got this opportunity because of this.
I mean, bro, I can't worry about what somebody thinks of me, and then that just distracts me from my path. And I can't live in my light if I'm focused on someone else's darkness, and I that's just not how I live. That's just not how I operate. And I want people to see me for me. If you focused on my mom and what she's done and that puts a bad taste in your mouth, then I can't help you. At the end of the day, all I can do is just live my life to the best of my ability and take the opportunities that God has bestowed upon me and then run with it. Because like I said earlier, man, tomorrow is not promised. If you worried on somebody else, if you're not worried on about yourself, then you worried about the wrong thing, man.
That's real. Tomorrow's not promised. Even the other thing, like you don't know. You brought up Twitch, like you don't know what people are going through, right? So sometimes when you're, if you're being really negative towards somebody, it's like you don't know what they're going through. Also, I guess the flip side, you don't know what the person who's being negative, what they're going through too, right? Because hurt people. Hurt people.
Hurt people.
So talk about Drexel. Like obviously, you talk about two. I know of one near death experience. I know there was a second one. I know Drexel. You had I got shot once too, but it was much less a serious situation. It was on some just dumb young.
I know about that story.
Yeah, a friend of mine. He got shot playing around. He was playing around with a gun. I'm like, yo, it's chill. And then he's like, oh, it's on safety. I was like, make sure it's on safety. He's like, it is, and he, whatever. But it was like a slight, it was a flesh wound. But you actually got like, what was that like? If you were it was your senior year?
Yeah, man, it was my senior year. No, it was my junior year in college. It was a week before I was turning 22, November 9th, 2013. I was out with some friends, getting drunk and faded, just turning up. And next thing I know, I woke up with 2 bullet holes in my leg and a grazed bullet up on my eyebrow.
Oh my
Doctor
goodness.
told me that I'd been shot. Later found out that I was getting into a cab after leaving a party. Now, mind you, I don't remember any of this. I just remember being at the party. My friend said I got into a cab trying to go to another party. And while I was on my way to the party, obviously I didn't make it to the party. I ended up in a completely different neighborhood that I was completely unfamiliar with. So my guess is that the cab that I got in dropped me off in this neighborhood and I was robbed from my iPhone and my wallet by a father and a son. And they shot at me 5 times and I ran away. They hit me 3 times. As I ran away, an off-duty taxi cab driver got out of his vehicle, saw that I needed help. I told him that I was shot in my head. And mind you, I only know this information because there's security cam footage.
That's insane.
So it replays in my mind. And so the taxi cab driver gets out the vehicle, looks around, carries me, puts me back into his taxi cab, and takes me to the closest hospital. The closest hospital, they didn't have an emergency trauma center. So they transferred me to University of Pennsylvania Hospital. And that's where I ended up. They stitched me. They discharged me, told me to come back next week. I was in such severe pain. I had to go back to the hospital. Now, to them, I was just another young man, that another
Oh
black
yeah,
man that
it's
got shot.
Philadelphia, right? It's
Yeah.
Philly, especially at that time. Well, now
So
too,
they
but at that time, yeah.
so they discharged me, and then I came back with my stepdad. My stepdad was like, "No, you gotta check on him because this pain that he's experiencing is not normal." Come to find out, if I had gone back to the hospital a week later, that they had originally suggested, they would have amputate my leg because there was so much nerve damage in my leg. So came back to the hospital. They did emergency surgery on me, saved my leg. They performed a fasciotomy on me. They did cut both sides of my leg open to relieve the pressure, take out all the excess fluid that was in my calf. Stitched me up. Stayed in the hospital for about like 2.5 weeks. Came back home and started to learn to walk again. And I went back to LA, and yeah, and I spent my winter break there, and then I came back home and started working on my senior thesis, and I graduated from Drexel. Yeah.
Wow. Well, shout out your stepdad. That's incredible.
Yeah, man. If there was one reason that my mom met my stepfather, State Senator Vincent Hughes of the 7th Senatorial District, it was to save me of my leg.
Yeah, that's a very good reason. And what was the other incident? Was that more recent?
So the other incident, sometimes I hate talking about both these incidences back to back because it makes people realize like there is a reason why I stopped drinking.
Well, there's also a reason why you're here too.
And there's a reason why I'm here. That is true. So 11 months before I got shot, December 11th, December 11th, 2012, I had a DUI, drove my car into a tree, car flipped over, had a brain injury, ended up having microscopic brain hemorrhaging in my brain.
Oh my goodness.
And literally lost my mind for a few months, and was in the psych ward. I was placed on a 5150. I was in the psych ward involuntarily, and was placed on a psychiatric hold because they thought that I was going to cause harm to myself or someone else.
For how long? Because I think it was like three days.
Yes, you're there for 3 days. But once they do the evaluation on you, you have to stay there for longer. And that was a really big wake up call for me. But it was also the biggest blessing because, when I see homeless people bugged out on the street, I know what that looks like. I know not to have control of your mind, because it happened to me. Because I remember when I was on the balcony, telling my mom, if someone knew how I felt right now, I would understand why they would want to kill themselves. I said this to my mom. Now, I knew I wasn't going to do it. I was just trying to get a reaction out of my mom. But again, I had no control over my thoughts and what I said. And that's when my mom took me to the emergency room, and then they placed me on a 5150. So when we talk about mental health in Black men, it happened to me. My mental health was severely impacted by that experience. And I think that experience is way more traumatizing than being shot, because literally it was like I was lost, and I felt everything was make believe, and I was always in this state of euphoria, but I was
almost
manic.
like mania.
Yeah, I was manic.
Mania
I was
almost.
manic.
Yeah,
And the only reason why I came out on the other side, bro, is because I had family that prayed on me and that were there for me during that time and made sure that I didn't go off on the deep end, because it was so easy for me to really just be stuck in that space. And so when people see, again, when we talk about my life journey and they see me now, present day, this has taken a lot of work for me to get to this point in my life. So I want to continue to use my voice and use my platform and share my story so that other young men know that they can make it through.
Well, also that's beautiful, and I also feel like a lot of times, like I'm guilty of this too, where it's like people are there to like are in a rush to get somewhere, right? And I feel like for you, like you've built this thing over time. Like I remember, you were. I know you had the backyard movie short film that like Issa Rae's production company, I believe, picked
Yeah, man,
up
the
as like
backyard in Baldwin
as part.
Hills.
Yeah, backyard in Baldwin Hills. But I feel like you've been like because I remember when you and a friend of yours whose mom is also a big star. You all had a series that you all like. I feel like a lot of times like it's so easy to give up when like the first thing doesn't work. And I think one thing I've been learning with these conversations with lots of different just artists and entrepreneurs and actors and just creatives is that like to keep going, right? Because I remember. I remember you making short films or kind of trying to do like series and stuff, and it's like and you went through all that, and now I feel like Walkgood is like such a, you had, I believe y'all had Walkgood, and I guess you could just explain to people what
so
Walkgood
is. First of all, it's a Jamaican euphemism. It means to take care. It means like really take care of yourself, like be good when you out there in the world, and it's something that my grandma would tell me.
Shout out to my our favorite Jamaican, Drake.
Don't do that. Don't do that. No, well, all right.
Who would be my real favorite Jamaican? I don't even know. Is Sean Paul Jamaican?
Yes, Sean Paul is Jamaican.
I mean, Bob Marley, obviously.
I'm mad you even asked that question.
I'm just saying the Caribbean.
You're gonna get me upset. You're gonna
get me
mad.
I don't want to make assumptions. The Caribbean is a very broad, because there's lots of islands.
Moving right along. So Walkgood means to take care, be good to yourself, be good to others. And it was something that my grandma would tell me every time I leave the house. And so when I thought about what I wanted my brand to be after I graduated college and I was starting my production company, I said Walkgood Productions. Then when years later, after the civil unrest of Black Lives Matter and COVID happened, I started to organize and I started to protest. And we started to call it Walkgood LA. And we made that a more inclusive community in the name of Black lives. And so before the protests, I would ask my cousin Marley to lead us in into some stretches. And that's when the idea to do yoga in the park came about. And so that next week, June 20th, the day after Juneteenth, we had our first Breathe Good session, which is the yoga in the park that you see. And that kind of took a life of its own. And we were yoga in the park, and we were able to build a community not only through social justice, but we were also able to build a community through social and equitable wellness for Black people through the practice of yoga. And I wasn't doing no yoga. I was just setting up the speaker and, taking photos and video to post it on social media. But then I started to think to myself, well, no, if I'm holding this space, if I'm building this community, I have to immerse myself in this wholeheartedly so that now people can trust me and what I'm doing. And so after a year of doing the yoga in the park, I then got my yoga certification at the Tree Yoga, which is a BIPOC owned studio in South Central at the Beehive. And I got my yoga certification with Black people. And so that's when I got yoga certified, 200-hour yoga certified. And yoga has really been a life practice. And I remind people that yoga is not a performance, it is a practice. And anybody that's starting their mental health journey, find their practice, because it might not be yoga. It might not be what you think wellness is. You just have to find what it is for you.
Yeah, it might be basketball.
Yeah.
I feel like that's my I hoop. I play pickup. I feel like that's my escape. Okay, I didn't even know that. I didn't know that. I mean, I remember it started around that time, but I didn't know that how it was intertwined. Yeah. And it's funny too, because I feel like yoga is so people associate yoga, especially outside of LA, with like white women and Lululemon. Yeah. But to have this sort of Black yoga movement,
and we're changing what healing looks like. And I think we all can agree we deserve to heal, especially during these times, man. I think we've been conditioned to feel and think that we are supposed to fight. And while we are supposed to fight, we also deserve to heal. We are not good to anyone if we are not good to ourselves. If we're not healing those wounds, those generational wounds, and not just putting a bandage on them and just forgetting about the pain. We're acknowledging the pain and we're treating that pain. And that's going to go on for a very, very long time. I think we live in this day and age where we seek instant gratification, but healing takes time and it is a journey. And so with Walkgood, I want to be that bridge and I want to introduce people to start their journey. This has become my life's work, and this is what I've been able to do with my family. And it seems like we're making an impact on people's lives.
Well, yeah, and I mean that's so true what you said about like because like again, hurt people, right? So if you're unhappy, if you're going through a lot, sometimes that'll make you lash out to people. So I guess so. You said after what was your like sobriety journey, right? Like, because I understand like after those two incidents, I presume you kind of were like, all right, like I probably shouldn't do that.
Yeah, no, I mean after getting shot, that was when I decided I'm gonna get sober and I'm not gonna smoke, I'm not gonna drink. I'm not gonna lie, I do like psychedelics though. I like shrooms. Shrooms is like a really it's a healing thing for me. But yes, weed and alcohol is just something that just did not benefit me at all. It just didn't make me feel good, and anytime I was doing that, it always brought me into a really dark, negative space. And so, after the DUI, like I said earlier, I went back to those habits of turning up and smoking and drinking, and it became a habit. And then after getting shot and not having any recollection of what happened that night, I was like, all right, I don't want to cause any more trauma on my family. I don't want them to have to look over their shoulder and watch every move that I make. I want them to trust. That's another thing too. Like, I think I lost the trust of my family after I got shot too. And this is the first time I've ever talked about this. I was losing trust of my friends and family while telling them that I wasn't going to smoke or drink anymore. I was just lying to them. And then it became cyclical. And I remember the frustration that I caused when I looked at my mom and I looked at my dad and I saw how worried they were for me. I never wanted to see that look on their faces ever again. And I want to make sure that whenever I show up in places, however I treat people, I want to make my parents proud and I want to make my family proud. And I don't ever want to make them hurt like that ever again.
I mean, that's very real. And it's funny, like, as you were saying, like, even earlier I was thinking about, like, because Africans and Jamaicans are pretty similar, I think.
Man, we are all part of the diaspora.
Yeah, and I can imagine, like, how an African mom or a Jamaican mom might react to that phone call of, like, your son is, flipped his car over, or your son is, especially, and then 11 months later, your son's in the hospital, like, I can imagine those are some difficult times. And, like, the reaction was, I'm sure was pretty. Yeah, also Africans, and I'm pretty sure Jamaicans too, are pretty dramatic too. So I think, that's a situation where a dramatic response is warranted. But like, so I can only imagine. Like, I feel like they're dramatic to little things. So like something like that, it's got to be pretty insane. Yeah. So was that a difficult journey? Like to like the sobriety? Like, did it take a while? Did you have to go to? Did you go to like a program?
I didn't do a program. I did go to a meeting. But it was heavy. But I also, my father's Buddhist, and I also practice Buddhism as well at the Soka Gakkai Institute, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. And I remember I went to one meeting, and I was like, "Why are all these people chanting? What is this? This is weird." But then I just started to realize that it was way more than chanting, and my life just started to be more aligned. And you could tell anybody, like, I always say this, like, my line is my life is in divine order, and everything is happening for me and not to me. And through the practice of Buddhism, I was able to really identify what that meant in the practice of this form of Buddhism, which is the Sharon Buddhism. But I was also going to church. I was, my family is also Christian, so I hold both of my Christian and my Buddhist values very dear and close to my heart. And I don't think it's fair to say I believe in one thing, because I believe in all things. I think we're all just coming from different roots on the same tree, breathing the same oxygen, breathing the same air. But it were these, I just kept having these enlightening experiences that kept reminding me that I was here for a reason, and that I had a purpose, and that I had a voice. And I just kept following that spirit. And it's brought me to the headspace. It's brought me to where I am today.
Wow. Yeah, that's very beautiful. I mean, I think, and I feel like people, like, LA is a very spiritual, like, not LA is a spiritual place, but people in LA,
I mean, of course, no.
spiritual.
LA is definitely a very spiritual place. I mean, look at it, bro. It's called Los Angeles, the city of angels.
That's true. That's true.
It is literally
very
probably one of the most spiritual cities in America. Now, it's plagued, don't get me wrong, but there's a lot of spirits in this city.
But yeah, the people in it definitely, like, have that spiritual vibe. What's it been like watching kind of the success of Abbott Elementary? Like, did your mom have to audition for that, or was she just kind of handpicked? I do feel like, into the context for that is, I feel like a lot of Black legends, because sitcom, like, a primetime show is just a different thing, right? Like, you might be a legend in in the Black community, like UPN, and you were the Mama Moesha. But when you start talking about 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock on an ABC, on a Fox,
it's a hit
on a
show, bro. It is the number 1 show in America.
Oh yeah, for sure. But I wonder, like, did she have to audition, or were they just like, yo, we want her?
No, at least to my knowledge, she was offered that role.
Okay.
Yeah, my mom. What an interesting pivot to it.
I know. I just, I feel like we're gonna have some Abbott Elementary fans, because, like you said, it's a big. And I feel like your mom has had this like, it's this thing where, like, I mean, because I look at it almost like Tracy with Blackish, right? And even Anthony Anderson with Blackish, right? Like, Tracy Ellis Ross was a legend off of Girlfriends, but Blackish introduced her to a whole new demographic. So I'm telling you again,
and people get
talking about 8 o'clock,
learn more about my mom's career and what she's done. Way back to Dreamgirls. My mom has,
and often they don't
so
know.
many decades of Black excellence my mom has been a part of. People, there's a generation of people that don't know that my mom has done movies with Denzel, has done movies with Robert De Niro. She's done movies with Sidney Poitier. Well, she's done movies with the greats, and so this is just another part of her legacy and her journey.
Yeah, that's what I wonder. Like, what's it been like for you? So you went to, I think you went to the Emmys. Yeah. You've been to a lot of these things alongside her. Yeah, as her +1, I guess +2. I guess I'm sure your sister probably went as well. But yeah, I mean, I think, and these things, they don't give you super long guest lists for some reason. So
we had to buy our tickets, man.
Yeah, they don't play. They don't play about some of these events. But yeah, like, what's that been like? Just to observe, I mean, to watch your mom live out her dreams in this way, and in this new. Cause like I said, like, I think it's so interesting, like, how different that primetime audience is. I remember people used to say, like, oh, like, the majority of Black's audience is white. And it's like, yeah, like, Black people are only like, what, 10-12% of America. Like, you're talking about a primetime show. Like, you're talking about a show that comes on.
I think when I see my mom in her career, I'm really just happy, because I have always envisioned this for my mom ever since I was a kid. Like, I remember literally seeing my mom on that stage. Every time I'd watch the Emmys or I'd watch the Oscars, I would always envision my mom on that stage getting her flowers and receiving that award. So seeing her get that Emmy and to be able to give that speech, it was a trip for me, because for me it was almost like I manifested this moment, and to actually see her get her flowers and get all the praise and the accolades, which I felt has been long overdue. It just reminds me that prayer and manifestation is real. It's real. And so now I'm going to continue to, like I said, me and my sister, every chance we get, we're going to use it to show love, as much love as we can, to our mom, to say, hey, you did it, and we're right behind you.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I think that prayer, like, really, well, I mean, it's funny, like, manifestation and prayer are almost like two sides of the same coin. But I do feel like LA, I come from a very, East Coast, or not, I mean, I didn't grow up in the East Coast, but, school, like analytical math and science background. When I got to LA and everyone's talking about manifesting and law of attraction and stuff, I kind of was like, scratch my head a little bit. But as I like get a little bit older, I kind of, like, I think I begin to be a little bit more of a, not, I don't say a believer, but I think that I see the way it can work.
Yeah, bro.
In the sense of like, just, yeah, like, and like, I think that there's certain people who oversimplify it, where it's like, oh, like, if I think about money, I'll make money. I'm like, okay, that doesn't really make sense. But like, there's certain things where it's like, if you have a certain goal and it's always on your mind, or if like, even just like, if you have a stank attitude all day, if you're frowning all day, you'll attract kind of more negativity. If you walk around with a smile, you'll attract more positivity. And so I do think that like there is, like, it's very, because I think I was one of those people who was like, man, get this new agey stuff out of here. But now I'm like, okay, like, I do think, just even talking to artists who, like, people who went through ups and downs, and it's like, when they were in those down moments, they had that faith and that belief that like, no, there's gonna be another side of this, and it's all gonna be worth
resilience
it.
And resilience. This isn't gonna be easy. This life is gonna be easy, man. This life is not easy, and we have to have resilience in order to see that next fight. We got to be warriors in this life, man. We got to be able to continue to keep up with the good fight and to keep pressing on.
No, that's real. I guess my last really two topics. One, you gotta tell me about these parties at your house, man, because I didn't grow up out there. Well, no, actually, first of all, Baldwin. How you end up on Baldwin Hills? Because Baldwin Hills is a classic. That was like my first introduction to, like, because I'd seen reality shows where it was always like real world. It's like white people, right? I'd never seen black people in this sort of light. So I guess what that experience was like in looking, because I feel like sometimes you used to be like almost a little bit embarrassed by the pictures, but now I feel like you're like, yo, like, that was dope. Like,
yeah,
my
bro,
Super Sweet 16,
tight,
like,
man. That was those being on a reality TV show at that time was dope. My only wish was that we had social media. Like, everybody wanted to have a Super Sweet 16 at that time. Everybody wanted to be on BET at that time, and
for sure.
And I am one of the very few to say that was a part of my life, and I met so many beautiful friends, lifelong friends that I still hold near and dear to me to this day. And now they're on Hulu, like I'm on a streaming platform. So,
yeah. Oh wait, is Baldwin Hills on Hulu?
Baldwin Hills and my Super Sweet 16 are both on Hulu, so you can go watch it right now. You just took you just probably took like a whole weekend out of my calendar, because I'm about to go back and just relive Baldwin Hills real quick, because it was the first time I really saw. Because I tell you, I always kind of put LA on this, like being a Tupac fan, being a huge Kobe and Shaq fan, especially really Kobe, and just even just having eventually wanted to kind of get into entertainment. So yeah, like, I think Baldwin Hills, I was like, oh wow, there are people who look like this who are on on a show like that. Like, every reality show had been Real World, had been even NYC Prep, these Bravo, and you hadn't seen that before. And okay, so, and then also, like I said, what was, because I feel like everybody that I run into, like, of our age group, talks about these parties at your house. Like, they're just these, like, it's like, yo, like, what was so lit about the parties at Etienne's house? Like, what about it? Like, because
to this
so
day.
Here's the thing: when I was young, my mom, it was just like in the movie, man. She would hide alcohol, and I'd find the alcohol, and we'd be turned up off these like little bottles of Smirnoff and Jamaican rum. And so the parties was just so turned.
Well, who are some of these people at these parties? I feel like these parties, it's like everyone who from there is like now,
this
like,
is like I remember the most epic party we had was when YG was just coming up, and he had that song "I Be the Pussy."
Oh yeah,
And I remember when that came on, the whole backyard was turned. It was crazy. So yeah, man, we had Odd Future. They were there. YG and Ty Dolla $ign were there. Pac Div were there. Hugh Augustine was there. I would throw these parties to it with my brother, my god brother Tristan Mac Wilds.
Oh yeah, Mac. Yeah, shout out Mac.
Man, shout out Mac. Yeah, man, all these people were there.
I feel like I hear about them as these legendary events.
Man, we just had
I think
fun.
Sid, right? You because Sid was part of that whole collective crew, right?
Sid and Travis are cousins with one of my best friends, Jamal, who I went to middle school with. So that's how I knew them.
Yeah, it's crazy that there was like all at the same time this kind of LA black kind of almost like Renaissance or cultural Renaissance. And then wait, your Super Sweet was it who performed at your Super Sweet 16? I feel like was it like Mos Def or something?
Talib Kweli. Talib Kweli.
Okay, I was close. I was there. They're like
the other half of Black Star.
Yeah, okay, I was close. No, that's lit. That's amazing. Do you ever feel like possessive that like because she's your mom, but she's our mom too? You feel me? Like
I think it's dope. It's dope that I get to share my mom with the world and share. I think I get to share my mom with young black millennials specifically, because they get a little taste of how I was raised, and I think I came out pretty good.
You did. I mean, and you get to share her with white folks. Now it seems like Abbott Elementary is on.
I'm never gonna claim that. I'm never gonna claim that.
All right, and that's a wrap. Okay, so this I call this a stealth dating podcast because at the end of it, I feel like dating is such a rich topic, because people I don't know, Black Twitter is always talking about $20 dates, splitting the rent, all this stuff. And dating, we're gonna have a Bachelor season 5,000, Love Island, Love Is Blind, and I feel like we're in this weird age. I won't call it weird, but I feel like we're in this. I guess you're in a relationship, we're in this age range where people are really you look left and you look right, and it's like, oh, bro got engaged, this person's pregnant, but on purpose, And so, what's that like? I mean, what was dating like for you, being on Baldwin Hills, being on my Super Sweet 16, and just as a kid younger, and then dating
when I was
now.
Young, I didn't realize I was very shy. I was very, very shy. And I always went the traditional route of, gotta have a girlfriend instead of just actually dating and getting to know girls. And I definitely went through my fuckboy phase for sure.
Yeah, who didn't?
But I think that's also a part of my healing journey. Trying to be in or being in a relationship, a healthy relationship with a beautiful,
a long-term one too. I feel like it's been a year. Like a good.
It's been a year. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think I feel like we're in that era where I feel like.
But also, just I want to also say that it's not easy being in a relationship. That I've definitely fucked up, and I'm going to continue to do the best I can, but also trying to hold my girl in the best light, and be the best partner I can be.
I'm glad you said that because I think that I'm in this era where I see the matching pajamas and I see all the glorified people really leaning into it, and I'm like, man, I want that. But you obviously don't see see the rest. But I do think I feel like there was this era, and maybe it's just an age thing, and it probably is just an age thing, but where being lit was cool, right? Being outside, you're outside, you're at Puffy's house, you're at this person's house, you got you're hopping in the whip with 5-6 girls, and now that stuff just seems very cringe and just young. Maybe I don't know, maybe it's just me getting older, or us getting older. Different strokes
for different folks.
Yeah, that's real.
What it comes down to.
That's real. We're and then last thing, I guess.
Man, you said last thing about 3 different times.
I know. We're about to. I know. I'm just over here trying to take your whole day. But Walkgood. Let people know where they can find you. Walkgood, what you're doing with Walkgood.
Walkgood LA on Instagram. WalkgoodLA.org. Online. Check us out. Make sure to follow us. Keep up to date with everything that we got going on. We got Breathe Good, which is our community yoga class every Sunday at Kenneth Hahn Park. We have Hike Good, which is every second Saturday, various trails around Los Angeles. We have Run Good starting back up in the spring, which is our run club. And then Film Good. Film Good is the very first film and wellness festival that will be starting in March. You can submit your short film now. It'll be, we're accepting 6 short films that will be screened in a 1.5 hour block. And then we'll have a Q&A with the filmmakers and have a mixer with everyone in attendance. And then the second day, we're going to have our Breathe Good yoga class and a mindfulness meditation around the stories we tell us, and then have a writer's workshop for everyone.
Wow,
yeah, man, it's a quarterly film festival. We're excited to be able to offer that to the community.
Well, also shout out to hiking. I got into hiking in the pandemic a little bit, and it's like it is very it can be refreshing to be out there, to be one with nature.
Shout out to Deidre Walker, who's our Hike Good leader. Man. And she's from Houston. Glad, you got to connect with her. Yeah.
That's dope. I love Houston. Well, I mean, it has been dope to watch from close and from afar, like your journey, like watching the success come when it did, and just seeing and also seeing that you did it on your own, really. I mean, I'm all for nepotism, right? Like, because everybody, why wouldn't you put someone in position? But, the Walkgood is doing, really, really blowing it up, and just seeing it, you had an event at Art Basel, just seeing you do the things that you do, and it's well deserved. So I appreciate the time. We'll have to link up on some project.
Yeah, man, very, very soon. I'm looking forward to it, and thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining. Bro. Okay, that was Etienne. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, rate, review. If you're in LA, make sure you check out Walk Good, Hike Good, Breathe Good, all of these events that they do, and I will catch you next time.